Okay, so today we are going to talk about illusions, and a lot of this should be review for you guys, but I just want to make sure that we all have the same background knowledge moving forward as we talk about illusions, especially in reference to our third common task. So you're going to need to know what an illusion is to do the next common task. So, as a reminder, an illusion is a brief and indirect reference to a person, place, thing, or idea of historical, cultural, literary, or political significance. So just to give you some examples of what that looks like, we use a lot of illusions in our just everyday language and some of the things that we write, some of the things that we talk about. So here are some famous ones. We've got some from Greek mythology. We also have some from literature. One that I see or hear you guys say a lot, especially today, right, is the reference to the Hunger Games. May the odds be ever in your favor. This is a literary allusion. So, when somebody references that, it's like a way to wish someone luck, especially if you're hinting about things being sort of like dystopian, like they are in the Hunger Games. So, when you make a statement like that, when you make an allusion, you assume that the person that you're talking to understands this reference. Here are a couple more. Some of them are biblical. Some of them are historical. Now, you'll notice that some of these might not make sense to you because you don't have the background knowledge you need to understand them. So part of this final project that you have to do is going to involve just a little tiny bit of research for you to understand it a little bit better. We also see pop culture references, and these are really our illusions. So when you see this meme, ain't nobody got time for that. We are referencing or alluding to pop culture, or in this case, a news report that happened where this woman came on and said this, and then it sort of became part of our meme culture. And we do see this a lot with memes, right? Especially today. There are a lot of different things that happen in pop culture, and then we reference it, assuming that everybody kind of knows what we're talking about. And it also helps to prove our point. All right, and I know that we talked, it's been a couple weeks now, about Allusions in Of Mice and Men, specifically with the title of the novel. So just to make sure that we understand what's happening and we all know what's going on, I just have a couple of questions for you guys to answer before we move forward as far as Allusions in Of Mice and Men. Sorry, my puppies are barking in the background. So just as a reminder, John Steinbeck does reference the poem To a Mouse in his title Of Mice and Men, right? And we talked about why that is and how Burns basically is saying, like, you can make all these plans and try to prep for the future, but you can't control what happens to you, no matter how well you plan it out, just like George and Lenny had this plan for their dream farm, and it didn't end up working out because of outside situations. One could even say that he used this illusion to help to prove his point, or sort of make his theme a little bit more apparent, that he does not think that the American dream is a possibility. All right, so we're going to practice identifying illusions a little bit better, or a little bit more together. And in order to do this, we're going to need a little background knowledge. So normally I would go through this example when we have done Romeo and Juliet, but since we probably aren't going to get a chance to read it together, I'm just going to give you a brief summary of Romeo and Juliet. This is the prologue. This is at the very beginning of the play, and actually this is spoken by the chorus, and it says, 2 households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge, break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. So when we start this story, we know there are 2 households. It's the Montagues and the Capulets, and they are both wealthy families, and they live in Verona, but they have an ancient grudge. So they have this feud that's been going on for a long time, and we actually never know what that feud is about. But then there's new mutiny. So there's this fight that breaks out, starts with the servants, ends up being with all of the family. And basically the prince is like, that's it. The next person that does this is getting put to death. From forth the fatal loins of these 2 foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life. So they're children of these 2 families, Romeo and Juliet, become star-crossed lovers. And this is a very famous phrase. Basically, it means that they were fated to never work out. When they take their life, they end up committing suicide. And it is important to note that Romeo and Juliet met at a party, and then they got married the next day, and then 3 days later, they had killed themselves. So this is not a very long story. It's also not there's not a lot of love story that develops. Whose misadventured piteous overthrows doth with their death bury their parents' strife. So it's only after they die that this feud dies with them. The fearful passage of their death-marked love and the continuance of their parents' rage, which by their children's end naught could remove, is now the 2 hours traffic of our stage. The which, if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. So it's often the question, like, why would you tell us the whole story before we even watch the story? But Shakespeare's point is this is not really the point, right? The fact that they die. The point is how they get to the death. And it's a lot of it is the character development and sort of all the bad decisions that everyone makes along the way. But just so that we get a little background and understand what's going on in Romeo and Juliet. So what I wanted to show you was this music video to Taylor Swift's song Love Story. I'm going to try to link it in here. If the link doesn't work, you might have to go to YouTube on your own and watch the video. YouTube took my video down because I had posted this in there before. I should have thought of that ahead of time. So let's go ahead and watch this really quick. And yes, I would like you to watch it, please, even if you are familiar with the song. Okay, so there are a couple of references in here well, she makes several allusions to more than just Romeo and Juliet, but the ones that are specific to Romeo and Juliet, there are a lot, but she says, we were both young when I first saw you. Romeo and Juliet are very young when they meet. And my daddy said, stay away from Juliet, right? This family feud is keeping them apart. And then she says, so I sneak out to the garden to see you. We keep quiet because we're dead if they knew. So this is very much a part of Romeo and Juliet. They're in Juliet's garden a lot. That's sort of where they hide and they discuss their love for each other. And obviously they have to be quiet. Otherwise they'll be killed by each other's family. But the real key is in the end of the music video. So you notice that she meets this guy and then she sort of has this dream of what this love story would be like. And then at the end, it's just them meeting for the first time. So she's definitely alluding to the fact that Romeo and Juliet met each other, then basically instantly fell in love. And she's alluding to this for a reason, right? There's a reason that she thinks that we should be thinking about Romeo and Juliet. So maybe it has something to do with the fact that you can't fall in love right away. There's no such thing as love at first sight. Maybe she's saying that it is a love story because, Romeo and Juliet is the story that's lasted for so long, that this love that she is about to experience is something very similar. It could be any of those things, but I am curious what you guys think. All right, so now we're going to talk about what your common task number 3 is going to look like and what I'm asking you to do. So you're going to choose a poem or a song. There are a couple songs on there from the provided list, Or you can make it, choose something. As long as you have permission from me, we are good to go. So you're going to use the provided Google Slides template, and you're going to create this presentation. It's going to discuss the illusion and how it adds to the meaning. This is our final assignment for quarter 3. It is going to be worth 100 points. You absolutely get points for creativity, but you will lose points if you do not correctly identify the illusion or if your analysis is lacking. So I really want to make sure that we are asking me questions. If you have questions, if you're struggling, just let me know. I am available, email, text, video conferencing, all of those things. Okay, so here is the template, and this is going to be in Google Classroom for you. So the first slide is just the poem. You just put the text of the poem there so that I can see it. I know which one you're talking about. Second slide is going to explain the poem. So just tell me what the poem is about. What is the author talking about? Maybe a little bit about theme. What the purpose of the poem is. The third slide is specific to the illusion. I want you to identify specifically what the illusion is and its historical significance, so what it's about. You will need to do a little bit of research for this, so just make sure we're using reputable sources and put the link in your speaker notes. For this part, you can use an additional slide if necessary. You don't need to overwhelm me with information, but just enough so that I understand the background to this illusion. And then I want the last slide to be your analysis. So this is how the illusion adds to the meaning of the poem and why the author chose to include it in this poem, right? There's a reason. What is the reason? And that's it. It's simple. Our last 2 assignments are going to be your response to the questions on this Edpuzzle and the common task number 3. If you have any questions, just email me, text me, come by during office hours Tuesday and Wednesday. I posted those in Classroom for you. I am here to help you, and you can basically get started on this as soon as you're ready. All right, thanks, guys.